Let's be honest for a second, because this situation isn't as simple as a politician repeating the same line over and over again and expecting everyone to just nod and move on. When Anthony Albanese says there's been no new requests, what he's really doing is trying to shut down the conversation without actually addressing the bigger issue. And that's exactly why people aren't buying it. Because here's the thing. When Donald Trump goes out publicly and calls Australia out for not stepping up in the Middle East, that's not just some random comment thrown into the void. That's a signal. Whether you agree with Trump or not, when a former and potentially future US president makes that kind of statement, it carries weight.
The Strait of Hormuz, well, President Trump isn't saying, other than saying they weren't there. Here is Sky News Australia's exchange with President Trump earlier today. On Australia, Mr. President, you asked for 3.5% increase, like 5% you did with NATO. Australia has only gone to 3%. Are you satisfied with that decision? Would you?
Well, I'm not happy with Australia because they were not there when we asked them to be there. So Australia,
what did you ask for?
Australia was another one. They were not there, having to do with Hormuz. The Hormuz.
What do you mean by that?
I'm not happy. I'm not happy.
And Alex, it was interesting listening to Prime Minister Anthony Albanese respond to President Trump just a short time ago. Sky News' Jack Nyhoff pressing the Prime Minister over his response to this issue again and again. And the Prime Minister was expressing his frustration, albeit slightly veiled, by saying he heard the question, he heard our questions, he heard our follow-up questions, and as far as the Prime Minister was concerned, well, there weren't...
Before we continue, do us a little favour by subscribing to the channel, because over 98% of you watching haven't subscribed. It costs you nothing, not even a penny, to join this channel. Have you subscribed? Thanks so much.
But instead of getting a clear, direct answer, what we're seeing is repetition. No new requests. Over and over again. Day after day. And at some point, that stops sounding like transparency and starts sounding like avoidance. Now, let's break this down a little deeper, because there are layers here that most people aren't even talking about. First off, the idea of no new requests is tactically very convenient. It doesn't mean there haven't been discussions. It doesn't mean there hasn't been pressure behind the scenes. It doesn't even mean that Australia isn't expected to act. All it means is that officially, nothing new has been formally asked. And if you know anything about how international relations work, you'll know that most of the real conversations don't happen in official requests anyway. They happen through diplomacy, through signals, through expectations that aren't written down, but are very clearly understood.
The Prime Minister was expressing his frustration, albeit slightly veiled, by saying he heard the question, he heard our questions, he heard our follow-up questions, and as far as the Prime Minister was concerned, well, there weren't any direct answers coming from the President. This is Sky News' Jack Nyhoff speaking with Prime Minister Anthony Albanese.
I've seen the Sky News footage and the way that the question was asked and the way that the follow-up was asked as well, and there wasn't an answer given. I refer to my previous answers day after day after day when I've been asked. They're exactly the same. There's been no new requests at all.
The quote from the US President is, "We asked them to be there, Prime Minister." That's a direct quote from the US President. That's pretty black and white what he said.
Well, I've answered the question.
So very interesting exchange there between Sky News' Jack Nyhoff and Australian Prime Minister Anthony Albanese. For his part, Australian Treasurer Jack Chalmers has been here in Washington DC for financial meetings around the war in Iran, and he was the first Australian minister to respond.
So when Albanese leans so heavily on that phrase, it feels less like honesty and more like a carefully crafted technicality, and people can sense that. That's why this story isn't going away. And then there's the bigger picture, Australia's role on the global stage. This is where things get really interesting, because this isn't just about one comment from Trump or one response from Albanese. This is about how Australia positions itself when things start heating up internationally. For decades, Australia has been seen as a reliable ally to the United States, not just in words, but in action. When the US moves, Australia is usually not far behind. That's been the pattern. That's been the expectation. So when Trump says Australia isn't helping, it clashes with that long-standing image. It creates a moment where people start asking, has something changed? And if something has changed, then Albanese needs to explain it properly. Not brush it off, not repeat the same line. Actually explain it. Because right now, the response feels thin. It feels like it's missing substance. And in politics, perception matters just as much as reality. Now, to be fair, there are valid reasons why Australia might not want to jump into another Middle East situation. We've seen how complicated those conflicts can get. We've seen how long they drag on. And we've seen the cost, not just financially, but in human lives and political fallout.
So hesitation isn't the problem. The problem is the communication. If the government's position is that Australia shouldn't be getting involved, then say that clearly. Own it. Stand by it. Explain why. People might disagree, but at least they'll respect the honesty. Instead, what we're getting is this loop of, I've already answered the question. And that's where frustration starts to build. Because from the public's perspective, the question hasn't really been answered. It's been sidestepped. And that's exactly why Trump's comments hit as hard as they did. Not necessarily because they were detailed or nuanced, but because they were direct. He didn't hide behind technical language. He didn't repeat the same safe line. He made a clear accusation. And whether that accusation is fair or not, it forces a reaction. Right now, that reaction feels incomplete. It's also worth thinking about what this means moving forward. If this kind of tension continues, it could have real implications for the relationship between Australia and the United States. And that's not something you can just brush aside with a repeated talking point. Alliances are built on trust, on expectations, and on clarity. And when any of those things start to wobble, it creates uncertainty. And let's not forget, this isn't happening in a vacuum. The global situation is already tense. The Middle East is always a complex and volatile region. Every move, every decision, every statement matters more in that context.
So when there's confusion or mixed messaging, it doesn't just stay within one country, it echoes outward. That's why this moment matters more than it might seem at first glance. And honestly, this is where a stronger, more confident response from Albanese could have made a huge difference. Instead of repeating no new requests, this was an opportunity to actually take control of the narrative. To say, here's where Australia stands, here's why, and here's what we're going to do. That kind of clarity would shut down the speculation instantly. But instead, the door has been left open. And once that door is open, people will keep asking questions. They'll keep pushing, and the story will keep growing. At the end of the day, this isn't just about one press conference or one exchange of words. It's about leadership. It's about communication, and it's about how a country presents itself when the pressure is on. Right now, it feels like that opportunity is being missed. But what do you think? Is Albanese playing it smart by sticking to a tight, controlled message, or is this just political dodging at its finest? And do you think Trump's criticism was fair, or just another example of him stirring the pot? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I really want to hear where you stand on this. And if you want more breakdowns like this, where we go beyond the surface and actually get into what's really going on, make sure you like the video and subscribe.